Jody Friedman, what's
What's
happening?
How are you, Roy? Thanks for having me today.
I'm super stoked to have you, and just like I feel like this pre interview conversation could have lasted 3 hours if you wouldn't have cut it short.
It's
For
true. We
real.
were running out of time, so we,
For
we gotta,
real, for real.
yeah.
Like, man, we were just talking about it. You live in LA. There's no like, we mean business here. We mean business. And I know you wanted to know some stuff. Like, you had a few questions for me, but we got to start with you. We got to start with you because you're more interesting than I am.
I don't
And
know about
no, no,
that.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But my listeners know me kind of, and
Sure.
you're more interesting to them as you are to me. And I would love to hear your story and to who Jody Friedman is and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, big question.
Yeah,
Um, who am I? That's the big question we're all trying to figure out.
right.
Um, you know, I knew from a young age that I loved music and I loved performing and I loved film and trailers, man. I always loved watching movie trailers before the show. Like I was that guy in the movie theater that if you talked during the trailers and you were sitting near me, I'd put my finger up to my list and say, "Hush, the trailers are on." Like I was more excited about that than the film. Um, I started at a young age with music, just singing and performing. I was at a very young age. I was kind of acting. It was more modeling than anything, but I was like, background in films and what. I lived in Tampa, Florida, so not far from Orlando, and there were some productions going on. So I got used to being on camera and um, just being comfortable with anybody. Um, and then when I got into music, really, I didn't pick up a guitar till I was like 14, and I started learning. I think Dust in the Wind was one of the first songs I learned. I had a classical guitar, and all I knew is if I picked really fast in that formation, it sounded like Dust in the Wind. And all I had to do was move my fingers, and I was able to impress my friends and impress the girls and, you know, everything a 14-year-old boy is trying to do. So I fell in love with the guitar. I would go home from school every day and I would grab my 6 string Samick guitar. And once I transitioned to a acoustic, I would listen to music. I would listen to songs that I liked, like Dave Matthews and County Crows, and I'd try to figure them out on guitar, just using my ear, and I would figure them out, and then I'd work on the chords and the solo. There was no YouTube, Roy. I couldn't look up how to play
Yeah.
what was it? Crush by Dave Matthews, or oh no, Crash Into Me in number 41. I had to kind of figure it out. So, but that was actually really good for me as a guitarist because I learned by ear and emotion.
Mm.
Right now, my daughter's a pianist and she's learning by, you know, teachers, which I wish I had that when I was younger. It's a different process. So I try to balance her out with, okay, let's close the book and now take what you just learned and just play. And think a lot of times when you're trained traditionally with music theory, great information to have. But if you don't take a moment to like back up and just let it flow and let the emotion carry you through the music, then it comes through in the performance. So that was really good for me. And then we were talking about a little bit about my Jewish youth group, which was called NFTY, NFTY, National Federation of Temple Youth. And they had song leaders. So I was 15 and I auditioned. You had to try out to be song leader in this program. So I had to teach everyone an original song and then a traditional song. And I was nominated after auditioning. I was nominated as a song leader for the Southeast region. So that's where I cut my teeth performing at these conventions in front of thousands of kids, leading them in song sessions, some popular songs, some Hebrew songs, leading services. When there wasn't a rabbi, we would lead services through song. So that leadership skill set was really honed there, and that performance skill set. And then, after that, when I left high school, I didn't have that anymore. I went to college, I was on my own for the first time. So I really started gigging. I was majoring in TV production. Again, my other love was films and trailers and just production, making stupid movies with my friends to make people laugh. I really enjoyed that, so I majored in TV production. That actually has served me really well in sync. I'll bring it around full circle to that. Because I learned how to edit. I learned how to think like an editor. I learned how to direct. I learned how to produce. I interned for Good Morning America, um, interviewed stars on the red carpet at the Oscars. Probably one of the best experiences of my life. Talking to Elton John and Michael Stipe and asking them questions about the
Jeez.
party they're going to, and it was amazing. Notice I go right to the musicians. There were like celebrities there, but I was like,
Oh
I
yeah.
want no one was asking for Michael Stipe.
Mm.
Nobody wanted, like, people walk out and the reporters say, "Oh, I want to talk to them. I want to talk to them," and then security brings them over. I saw Michael Stipe and I recognized him right away. I'm like, I want to talk to him.
Mm.
They brought him over and I asked him some questions and we had a nice conversation. Um, so after that, I'm in and out of bands, majored in TV production, worked at CNN, got a job out of college at CNN. I was supposed to start like right before 9/11. And then, of course, 9/11 happened and they pushed back my start date to October 15th, 2001. So I started then at CNN in Atlanta. I learned stage managing and teleprompter and audio, graduated to an audio engineer. Then I moved to New York because this is interesting. It
Mm.
wasn't just the job, it was the song. It's all about music. It all comes back to music for me. My whole journey, the song actually has been guiding me. Because when I picked up that guitar at 14, I started writing songs. I love songs. There's nothing better than a great song. Everything we do starts with a great song. In music, I mean, you have to have a good song. So I wrote a song for a talent show called the Prompter Song. It was about my job. It was very Adam Sandler like. Prompter, I'm a prompter operator. Audio, I'm an audio operator. Camera one, camera two. I do what directors tell me to. It's like silly and playful. It was about my job. And it won grand prize at the CNN Search Talent Show. This was like 2001. So it was the same year that American Idol season one was happening. CNN was trying to replicate that. It actually was called CNN Idol internally. So I won that and it was awesome. It was such a great time, performed it at the Tabernacle. The next day, Roy, the president of CNN calls me into his office. He pulls me off the audio board in the middle of my shift. My manager comes to get me and he says, "Hey, Jim Walton wants to see you." So, okay, I thought I was in trouble.
Mm.
So I go into Jim's office and he's just congratulating me, telling me what a great job I did. Everyone really loved it. And um, he says, "I see you apply for this job in New York. How would you like to go?" And of course, I said, "Yes, please. That'd be amazing." So that song, that one song, really got me the job in New York. I'm sure my skills played into it a little bit. He probably talked to my managers like, "Does he suck? Is he bad at his job?"
Mm.
But that song is what got me the shoe in for that job. So now I'm literally living my dream of living in New York City. 2004 to 2006, I was there. We worked at Time Warner Center, Paula's On Now, Anderson Cooper 360, Lou Dobbs Tonight, Aaron Brown Newsnight, and we were rotating on shows. And I was still gigging. I recorded my first CD in New York, 2005. After work, I'd go to shows. I'd be gigging, gigging, gigging. And I'm on the way to a show. I was working on a show called Nancy Grace at CNN at the time. I'm headed out. I've got my guitar on my back. And the executive producer, his name's Dean Sicoli, he stops me and we started talking music. Guy never really said much to me until that point. Started talking music with me. He said, "We need a theme song for the show. Do you think that's something you could do?" And my eyes lit up. And yeah, I think I could do that. I went home that night and worked in GarageBand. I threw some loops together, 4 or 5 loops. Became the theme song for Nancy Grace, an All Points Bulletin theme. When that happened, I'd heard about royalties. I didn't really know what they were, but I knew I had to go research it. So on my breaks, I would go to Borders Bookstore, which was in Time Warner Center in that same location. I get all the books I could about publishing and the record business and songwriting. Like I dove all into that. because I knew I had to learn it. I had to learn the business to understand what had just happened and what I needed to do to capitalize off of that opportunity, right?
Hmm.
So I went down to the courthouse. I started my publishing company. That was an amazing day for me. I remember going down to the New York courthouse, Roy, and it was like these giant white pillars. It was like, I don't know, like out of Gangs of New York or something. Like I just felt, I felt such pride in being able to start my business, my publishing company surrounding music, and knowing that I could make money from music, which I hadn't really thought was really possible before, except for being signed to a major record label and getting the superstar, deal that everybody was chasing at the time, and so hard to get. Just literally one in a million, right? So fast forward about a year and a half, I'd quit my job. We were heading out west across the country. I got my first royalty check on the way to California. I got my first royalty check for that theme song. And it was $15,000 for the publishing and $15,000 for the writers.
Wow.
So here I am, like taking a big risk, quitting a good paying job, heading across the country, and I get that $30,000 check. I'm like, oh my God, the world is, this is a sign. This is telling me this is the right thing to be doing. You can do this. You need to do this. I used that money to start my business out in California. I started my licensing company. I started pitching my own music, taking meetings with supervisors. Um, then I realized very quickly that I needed to, if I wanted to survive and thrive in sync, I needed to offer more than just one genre. And I was a acoustic singer songwriter. There's only so many spots for that. So I started signing other talent to my company and representing other talent. Then I started getting placements, and I do get placements for my own stuff still. Every so often, my own one sneaks in there, and it's so passive. I don't even think about it when it happens. I'm not like excited as I would have been back then. Just like, oh, cool, they used my song, which is kind of crazy because back then I was like so desperate, like, please use my song in Weeds, please use my song in True Blood, right? But now it happens, and Ray Donovan, and I've had a lot of placements, a bunch of other shows. I don't even think twice about it. But that's because once you do sync, it just becomes like routine. Once you figure out the system, there's only one way to do sync. And once you figure that out and you understand that system, you just replicate it. It's like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So 2006 started my sync agency. In 2008, I had another big opportunity. My friend from college, Luke Kasdan, he invited me in to act in his film. And when I was acting for him and playing some parts, we were chatting. I said, "Do you have a music supervisor?" He said, "No, I don't." "Do you need one?" "Yes, I do." "Can I be that for you?" He said, "Yeah, actually, you can. That'd be awesome." And like most supervisors, I did it for free. You cut your teeth. You do those first jobs for free. I had a $40,000 budget. I had 12 songs to clear, and that led to the next job, which led to the next job. So I'm one of the supervisors that, I've worked on a lot of projects, films, TV shows. I've done some sonic branding for ads. Um, and I also have my own libraries, my own catalogs. Not all supervisors do. And I mention that because I think one thing I don't want to do in this conversation is steer musicians the wrong way and have them think that you should pitch your music to a supervisor and ask them to represent you. You should not do that because that'll come across a bit amateurish. Most music supervisors, if you're pitching them to be in their shows or in their commercials or whatever they're working on, you don't want to ask them to represent you. Even when you reach out to me, when people reach out to me, I prefer it if they focus, like, what is the outreach? If they don't specify, I will respond and say, are you asking me to represent you, or are you pitching for projects that I'm music supervising? Just to clarify, because a different, my response is going to be different based on how you frame it. So that's the story, man. I mean, I've had over 10,000 placements since starting my company. It really took off in 2008. Once you get the first placement, the second placement, it just starts to spiral. um, they see this supervisor's working with this person. Maybe I should look at them a little seriously. It's a very small, tight knit community. There's probably these days probably 1,500 music supervisors in the whole world,
Wow.
and there's over half a million, musicians, labels, artists, managers, publishers trying to get the attention of those 1,500 music supervisors. So um, that's why you have to use a system. You have to be persistent, and we actually teach. We teach to not really pursue supervisors for placements. We teach to go towards sync agents and libraries, because the days of going to music supervisors directly for a placement, it's very, very hard to do these days. You can do it. You might find success doing it. I'm not sure if you'd get consistent placements from music supervisors. So to get consistent placements and have that career, you really need like a team, like a staff working your stuff, and a good amount of music for them to shop. I kind of skipped over something. In 2020, I started teaching online with the Great Reset. Hollywood froze. And I started teaching online. I started License Your Music, which then last year I merged with a friend of mine, composer producer Michael Elsner, and we started Elite Music Coaching. So it was a big moment in 2020 where I was thinking, what do I get enjoyment out of aside from sync? And it is teaching. It goes all the way back to when I learned to be a song leader, and I was leading and teaching, and teaching guitar and teaching songwriting, and it's always been a very fulfilling experience for me. So I've found it to be really rewarding to be able to teach what I know, and then watch from afar as those students go on to have success in sync. That's a pretty rewarding thing for me.
Ooh. So there's so many things that I wrote jotted as you were speaking, because there are just so many things to so many routes we can go on. The first question I have, it goes in a little bit deeper, because I mean, what really fascinates me is the mindset of the people I'm interviewing. I mean, without the mindset, you can give me a cookie cutter method how to reach out to supervisors, what email to send them, and it may work, but it would not give me what Jody's thinking. So like, the way that I think about anything, especially in sync, tough skin and resiliency is one of the first things that come into my mind.
Yeah.
Um, and I just love the fact, I love people who were open enough throughout their journey to do as many things as you have done, because like I'm 32 and I haven't done, bro, I haven't done 100th of what you've done, career transition wise. And I'm not saying that to put a wind in your sails. I'm just saying that because I really appreciate that trait in people. And I want to know, where do you think that came from? The ability to maneuver and pivot and do all these things that you've done.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a great question. I'm an Aries, so I'm a fire sign. So I think that might play into it a little bit. Um, the ability to pivot and maneuver. I mean, it can be. It can also be. I've had to rein in the shiny object syndrome a bit. Going my whole journey, when I see a shiny object, I'm thinking, oh, I better turn over that stone and check it out in case something's under it. That's part of it. Was my father. My father instilled in me the idea that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you got to be determined, you got to be dedicated, and you got to commit. Um, I don't know. I've always been like that. I can't think of a time in my life where I was like hesitant. Now I see it with my own son too. He's 12 and he looks like his mom, but he acts like me.
Hmm.
Um, just like I just go. And when I hit something, I'm like, wait a minute. There's a great book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Outliers. Have you read this book? Oh, it's a fantastic book. So it's like the outliers are kind of like the the stuff you don't see. I don't know. The best way I can summarize it actually is with some lyrics for a song I wrote. Uh, I might get them wrong. It's been a minute, but they're called I call them the moments between. So the moments between where memories get lost in the space never seen. You know, something like we spend most of our lives chasing our dreams and we missed out on the moments between. Or we miss out on the moments between. Those are those moments that are passing you while you're going down that journey that you kind of can get tunnel vision and you forget to see this thing that's right in front of you just passing by. And I've had to rein that in over the years as I've gotten older. I've gotten much better at it, at recognizing, you know, it is about the journey, but you also have to recognize in the journey what's right in front of you, what you've accomplished, and being appreciative and grateful for the world presenting those opportunities and just being present with those opportunities. For now is a great example because I'm really focusing on spending time with the family, not working as much, and realizing that I don't want, or I could spend my time chasing more placements. I could spend my time reaching out to supervisors and doing this and that. And I'm making an active choice not to. I'm lucky that all the work that I did all those years, now they're reaching out to me. I'm on a lot of lists. I still have to respond to briefs if I have something right for it. Sometimes I'll even let a brief go by. I won't scramble to pitch to it because I know there's going to be a new one the next day or the
Mm.
next week, right? So it's about living life too. I don't know if this is answering your question exactly, but that's where I'm at. The outliers is it's really about those things you don't see that are right in front of you, the things that are passing you by. I highly recommend checking out the book. There's a lot more to it than that. I'm doing a horrible job of summarizing that book, but yeah, man, it's fun. It's been a really fun journey for me.
It's in my list now. This I have a bunch of Malcolm Gladwell's in my list, and I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna bounce this to the front because this is definitely something that's been um it's a personal thing. It's a personal thing I've been grappling with, where opportunities come, but I'm just like, no, I want that Spider Verse, or I want that, like, these things, these specific shiny objects that completely, as you were saying, they blind one from these beauties in between. I was talking to a friend of mine just now, just before we were talking. I was talking to a friend of mine who's doing a lot of trailers and a lot of films, scoring films, and we were just speaking. We were just catching ourselves in a moment of us being so caught up in first world problems, where there are definitely people who are not able to even listen to our podcast. So just like stopping for a second and saying, man, like we are in the 1% already for being able to even make music. So what are we complaining about? What is all this fuss about? And it's interesting, like to see how the mind tends to think forward to something. And I think it's a mechanism, we've had since probably, that's it's probably kept us alive, because we were thinking towards the evening, like thinking, okay, today's cold, how are we going to light a fire? Or like these there's a cave there, but there may be a bear there. So this sort of rationalization and creating stories around things. um and yeah, I'm just super curious. There's a huge curiosity in me about people who can be who are able to gift this to their children, and are able to pass on this curiosity that you possess, in specific. And I just love what you were talking to. So
You
thanks
bring
for
up some
sharing.
good points. Yeah, thank you. You too. You bring up some good points. Like it's partly survival instinct. It's partly creating a legacy instinct. Creating music that's timeless, or these placements in media, thinking somehow I think subconsciously that'll just carry on your name, or you'll live forever through those moments, those placements, which is kind of ridiculous if you really think about it.
Yeah.
But I think that instinctively, is that the word? Instinctively, probably plays into that drive. And you said, we look forward, but you also commented earlier on mindset, and I think that is a very important thing to do, is to be looking forward. Don't you don't I would advise, I don't want to come off as preachy, but letting your past dictates the lens that you view your present in, and your mindset creates your future. You
That's
can
true.
literally materialize your future.
Mm.
If I said to you, right, I mean, great example, um, I just signed on to produce a feature film. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought I'd do that. And that's an outlier, because what happened was I wasn't even thinking about it really. Actually, that's not true. It had occurred to me, like, man, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that, right? That'd be interesting. That'd be a lot of fun. And then the opportunity did present itself, where with an old friend, a director friend, and I could have offered to be his music supervisor, but instead I opened a discussion with him about producing his film. So, you know, was it a shiny object? Kind of, but it was something I had been subconsciously thinking about. And then when I didn't go seek it out, it
Mm.
actually presented itself to me. And that lens that I had based on my past and my materialization, my visualization of the future, allowed me to take advantage of that opportunity and at least explore it. I didn't know what would
Yeah.
happen. I didn't know if he'd say yes or no, but I explored it with him. I opened up the conversation. So I mean, and now like I've started. I never would have thought before. Like dream list was like get a Grammy, get a Grammy. That's my dream, right? To get a Grammy. And now I've started to like take a realistic approach to it, and I keep putting it out there in the world to myself and just in conversations with people. Like, yeah, I'd love to have a Grammy, right?
Mm.
Um, I used to tell myself that's just not possible. You're not going to get a Grammy. You're not signed to a major label. But I've been hanging out with people and talking with them that are in the academy and have had Grammys that nobody knows who they are, right? But they have their Grammy, And granted, it's kind of a materialistic validation, but that's just an example of something that I want and I'd love to materialize and make that happen if possible. My life won't be any worse if that doesn't happen. So that's also the thing, like not being too precious about these things, and that mindset. Musicians, gosh, musicians and artists, we musicians and we artists, were always told no. You have to develop that thick skin. Like I know too with my son in acting, like, oh my God, they don't get their music rejected. They get their performance
Mm.
rejected constantly. They get told no. Even the celebrities,
Yeah.
I want to be in that film. Call that producer. I want to be in that film. Brad Pitt's guy gets on the phone, calls him up. Hey, Brad's interested in the film. The producer's like, I don't know. He's not like the right look. Like he still gets told no. Everybody gets told no.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how popular you are, how famous you are. Rejection is actually a learning opportunity. How you handle those rejections speaks volumes. And when those negative thoughts come in and start telling you, oh, you're no good, you've got to be able to tell them to shut the hell up. If you can't do that, then you're going to go on this negative thought spiral. And everything you do, you're kind of just floating out in the ether in this negative thought spiral instead of staying in that circle of positivity. You know, there's positive outlooks on every situation in life, even some of the worst, most tragic situations that I've been through. I could find a positive thing in. I could. It's all about perspective and how you perceive it.
Do you have a scenario you'd like to share that you came up on the other side of and was just that was the epitome of what you're talking about?
Gosh, that's a good question. Um, I don't know if it's exactly the epitome of it, but I mean, I was in. We were talking about Israel. I was in Israel in '97, and when I got back, I was going to college, and I was trying to arrange some interviews for jobs, right? Because I was going to start being in the workforce with a degree and whatnot. And one of the interviews I had was at William Morris Agency in New York. I set it all up from Israel over the computer over email with somebody at William Morris Agency. When I booked the trip and went to New York, I had an interview with William Morris and MTV and a few other places. I showed up at William Morris. They didn't know who the hell I was. You're not on the calendar. What do you mean? You're not on the calendar. Oh, that person's no longer here. They were an intern. They shouldn't have done that. I was so defeated. I was so defeated. I
Mm.
walked away from that because I kind of wanted to be a music agent, which ironically I ended up being anyway, a sync agent. Um, I walked away from that. And I was walking uptown, and I remember having this moment, say, you know what, Jody, you got to go back in that building, and you got to demand to see somebody. That's exactly what I did. I said, this is unacceptable. I booked a flight. I traveled to New York. Like I get it that this person doesn't work here anymore, but there's got to be somebody here who would be willing to sit down and talk with me. And I met with a woman. Her name was Pat. I can't remember her last name. She was a big higher up at William Morris. And the first thing she did was congratulate me on coming back to talk with her. She said, you did the right thing coming back in here and demanding to see me. That's ridiculous. Just because the person at the front desk told me they shouldn't have done that, people don't always think outside the box of what they're doing. So that having that moment and that determination, I didn't get the job. Actually, in that conversation, I remember her talking to me and saying, "You're a really big fan of music." Yeah, I really am. She said, "Well, something to